Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into the Republic of Colombia.
A truly fascinating place.
Absolutely. We're looking at a country of, around 52 million people that's navigating this really critical transition period through 2026.
It's a huge shift across its security, its economy, and even its cultural identity.
And you really can't understand any of that without first looking at the geography. It's, the only nation in South America with both a Pacific and a Caribbean coast.
That position is so strategic. It's a hinge, really, between the Andes, the Caribbean, and the Amazon.
But the thing that really stood out in the sources for me was this concept of verticality.
The Andes, yeah.
Right, the mountains literally splitting the country. How does that actually, play out on the ground?
It defines everything. It fragments the country. The Andes splitting into three huge parallel ranges, the Cordilleras.
The western, central, and eastern.
Exactly. And the altitude dictates the entire climate. You get these wild extremes. Well, you have the Choco region, which is hyper wet. It gets something like 7,000 millimeters of rain a year.
Wow.
And then you contrast that with the La Guajira Peninsula way up in the north, which is basically a desert.
And that kind of fragmentation, I imagine, makes governing incredibly difficult, which I guess brings us right to the main political story.
Paz Total.
Total peace, the current administration's flagship policy.
It's this incredibly ambitious strategy to try and dismantle 60 years of violence.
No.
By negotiating with, everyone, all at the same time. We're talking politically motivated insurgents like the ELN and the big organized crime syndicates like the Clan del Golfo.
But the analysis we're seeing suggests there's a real paradox here.
There is. On the surface, direct confrontations between the state and these groups. They've gone down. Statistically.
Which sounds like progress.
It does.
Yeah.
But critics are arguing that these ceasefires are actually being exploited.
Exploited how?
That groups like the EMC, that's the main FARC dissident group, are using the pause in fighting to recruit, to rearm, and to really consolidate their control over territory.
So while it might look quieter on paper, the problem is actually getting more entrenched.
That's the argument, yeah. And this whole issue is going to define the 2026 election. The current president can't run again, so the opposition is already gearing up for a security-first campaign.
And this all connects to the economy, right? This big push to pivot away from extractive industries.
It's a massive challenge. Mineral fuels and oil still bring in over $22 billion a year. That's the dominant export by far.
But I did see some bright spots, especially in agriculture.
Oh, absolutely. Agriculture is incredibly resilient. It's, 8.1% growth this year, mainly from coffee and livestock. Provides a lot of stability.
But it's not enough to really decouple the economy on its own.
Probably not. But we have to talk about one of their other major exports.
Huh?
Almost a hidden superpower. Exactly. High-quality emeralds. They dominate the global market. And what's really interesting is how you can tell where they're from.
How so?
Well, stones from the Muzo district have this deep, saturated, oil green color. They often have these little inclusions inside them that miners call jardine. A garden.
A garden inside the stone.
Right. And then you have the Shiver District stones, which are completely different. They have a more bluish-green color, and you can often find these little pyrite crystals inside.
This theme of complexity, of duality, incredible beauty alongside incredible challenges, it feels like it runs through everything.
It's perfectly captured in their culture. I mean, think of Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Magic realism.
Exactly. The idea that the supernatural is just mundane. It's a perfect reflection of that Colombian experience you mentioned, the coexistence of unbelievable violence and miraculous survival.
And what about in the visual arts?
Fernando Botero. His style, Boterismo, depicts everything in this exaggerated volume. He always insisted he didn't paint fat people.
Right. He painted volume.
And he often used that style for some pretty sharp social critique, like in his series on the death of Pablo Escobar.
So if we tie this all together, the story of Colombia heading into 2026 is this massive attempt to transition its entire system.
It's a story of trying to untangle its economy from resources and its society from 6 decades of violence, all through dialogue. It's an incredibly volatile mix of potential and risk.
Which leaves us with a final thought to consider.
It does. I mean, you have to remember, Colombia is ranked #1 in the entire world for biodiversity. The most bird species, the most orchids.
A biological treasure.
So the question is, can something like high-value, low-impact ecotourism, people traveling to remote areas just to do bird watching, can that ultimately provide a more powerful, more permanent economic alternative to oil and illicit crops than any political policy ever could.
A green transition driven from the ground up. Something to think about.